have an NC700, typical brake job. This is ABS system. We have to be careful with that ABS sensor that we have. I'm going to go ahead and pull this caliper off. I went ahead and loosened the caliper bolts as well as this pin bolt that the brake pads slide on. Pull that out. You can see how low these brake pads were. Definitely need of attention. There's a lot of dust and crap all over this caliper that we got to get cleaned off. Let's go ahead and remove the slide bracket. Just 2 pins, slides right out. Then we have our dirty, nasty pistons. The calipers do not come with dust seals that are exterior like on cars, so we got to pump these pistons out a little bit to show some of the shiny metal behind it so we know where the dirt ends. I have a pair of reverse slip ring pliers that work really well. They have teeth on them. I'll put them in the description. You can grab that piston and kind of pull it outwards. Keep in mind that we're sucking fluid down as we do this. I have some 4/0 steel wool. This is my go-to tool to clean this stuff off. It polishes them up really nice. And we can use our pliers, of course, some compressed air to clean up our mess. And just grab them and twist them and keep continuing on around the piston. We need all of this stuff to be super shiny and clean and polished. If we have any rust or pitting on them, it can be resolved with a little file if you have a really nice fine diamond grit file, but we're looking for any kind of pitting that's going on. But generally you can clean all of this stuff off pretty well. Otherwise you'd have to replace the piston if it does have rust. I'm just looking for any pieces that I can scrape off with my finger that may need attention, but all of it came right off and it was nice and clean. Keep spinning them and checking it out. Now we can use these same pliers and kind of push these pistons back into each other. And what I will note is that sometimes if the bike has been serviced, someone may fill the brake fluid up way too much in the top reservoir, and pushing these pistons in you might get a stopping point with it. And if that's the case, you can break the bleeder on the calipers and then push the pistons in. Just have a hose attached to it to a bottle so it bleeds out into a bottle, so you're not pushing so much brake fluid up to the top. Here we have our slide bracket here. We want to make sure that all these pads, as you saw before, that are nice and clean. That spring pad that's on the caliper itself, as well as this one that is on the bracket, we need that nice and shiny, because brake calipers, or brake pads per se, slide around on those things, and we need them to not have any sort of resistance that would keep them from pushing themselves towards the rotor. I like to clean off the mating surfaces of where they attach, where they bolt up to that fork. We need some fresh grease inside of these pin boots as well, and make sure that we don't have any grease hanging out. We don't want anything to be able to collect dust down the road. And then we can go ahead and get this other one that's on the caliper. I just use a little flathead screwdriver with some all-purpose grease or synthetic grease, whatever you got. Clean that all off. We don't want anything wet. I'm going to go ahead and push this right back on there. If you have too much grease in there, it might push itself back out. You might want to take some of that grease out. We don't want anything weird going on. This is the ABS system here. We can go ahead and clean that off. Make sure there's nothing that would hinder its talking to the front ring that it talks to. Brake pads, brand new. You can see the difference in these things. We're looking for about a nickel's thickness. A nickel's thickness on brake pads would generally fail a state inspection, and these were about dime thickness. Here's our pin that the calipers slide on. We need this to be nice and smooth. Green Scotch-Brite does an amazing job on this. Clean that all off. If that's rusted or pitted, I would just go ahead and just replace it. You don't want the caliper or the brake pads getting hung up on that and then unevenly wearing. Okay, new brake pads, they always follow the orientation of the rotor, kind of rounded like that. Drop them inside. They'll only go in, or you can put them in whichever way, in many different ways, but this is the correct way, obviously. Once we get that on the springboard and the spring seat, we'll go ahead and push this pin back in. Use some tools, kind of tap that in. It should go. Put some spring tension with your thumb, or some tension down on it. You should be able to thread that needle. Once we drive that pin in, we can go and just make sure the brake pads are all separated. So we have plenty of space to push this thing back onto the rotor. Sometimes you got a really tight clearance. You're trying to get these things back on. Just get the right angle and it should slip right on. 2 caliper bolts. Go ahead and throw some lightweight Loctite on them, some medium grade. I don't ever use red on these. I think that's a bit overkill. Throw those on. Just going to cinch them down, make sure our ABS wire is not being pinched or getting rubbed on or anything weird. It should go right back where it should. Torque these down. I want to say it's like 30 Newton meters, 31, 32, something like that. Check your manual. Same thing with the pin bolt. A lot less torque on that. Pump the brakes up. Good to go. See you guys next time.